Wow. That was certainly a lot closer than any of us, including me, thought it was going to be, but it was inevitable. The United States rallied massively on Sunday in singles at the Ryder Cup, but they come up just short as the Europeans retain the cup 15 points to 13 points. Now look, they went into Sunday only needing 2.5 points to retain the cup, because if you hold the cup, you only need 14 points to retain it. The other team needs to take it away with 14.5 points. And they got a break before the singles play even started. The Euros and the Americans were each rewarded a half point when Viktor Hovland had to withdraw from injury, and then Harris English, who was supposed to play Viktor Hovland, doesn't play. It's a rule. We'll get into it. We will get into it. So they went into the day really only needing 2 points. They got 3. This might have turned into one of the greatest comebacks in the history of sports. Forget the Ryder Cup. Again, we talked about this yesterday. The biggest comeback on a Sunday in Ryder Cup history was 4 points, done twice by the Americans in 1999, where they were down 10-6 at Brookline, and then in 2012 at Medina. The Euros were down 10-6, and they stormed back to win. The Americans made it really interesting. Way more interesting than any of us ever thought it would be. You had Cameron Young go out there, who's a kid from Long Island, make a birdie putt on the first match out on 18 to win the match, one up from Justin Rose. And then Justin Thomas did the exact same thing on 18 to Tommy Fleetwood. Tommy Fleetwood had not lost. He'd been 4-0 in the Ryder Cup, and he found a way to lose to Justin Thomas, one up at 18, another buried point. And then the third match out, Bryson DeChambeau was 5 down through 7 holes. 5 down through 7 holes, and yet he found a way to come back and scrap out a tie by winning 8, 9, 14, 15, and 17, and had a decent look at birdie that almost went in that might have won the full point. Instead, the Euros secure a point there. Then Scottie Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler found a way to win, taking down Rory McIlroy, one up, and things got really interesting because then you had the situation with Xander Schauffele, who absolutely dusted Jon Rahm. He won 4 and 3, so that match was over. And suddenly, when you're looking at the board, you didn't see many blue flags or blue banners up there, and there was a lot of red, and you had to start thinking, is this possible? Is it really going to happen? Are we really going to almost double the greatest comeback in Ryder Cup history? And I think what Justin Thomas said after his interview, after he sank that putt against Tommy Fleetwood to win it, he said, look, it's a long shot, but I had to do something to go out there and give us hope. He gave him hope. Cameron Young gave him hope. Scottie Scheffler finally didn't take the collar. Instead of going 0 for 5, he went 1 and 4 in this Ryder Cup. He gave him hope. But then Ludwig Åberg really took care of Patrick Cantlay, and when he secured a full point, all you needed was just 2 more ties, and then they got a couple of them. Look, J.J. Spaun took down Sepp Straka, not a problem. Russell Henley and Shane Lowry. Shane Lowry making that putt on the 18th green to give them the 14 points necessary. The emotion that poured out of Shane Lowry. We'll get to that in a minute as well. We'll get to that. Because I think it says a lot about what we saw. Ben Griffin then beats Rasmus Højgaard. Colin Morikawa and Tyrrell Hatton tie. Sam Burns and Robert McIntyre tie. And obviously Harris English and Viktor Hovland tied, but that was determined before Sunday's play because of the injury to Viktor Hovland. So I want to get into a couple of things. First of all, you have to give it up for the American team. They had no reason to think that they had a chance to go out there. Again, trying to almost double the biggest comeback in Ryder Cup history. And they didn't quit. I mean, they didn't quit. You had your dogs go out first. Cameron Young, who, by the way, was by far, like not even a question, the best player for the U.S. team as a rookie in this Ryder Cup. He was absolutely incredible. He goes out and does his job. Dustin goes out and does his job. And suddenly, for the first 2 days of the Ryder Cup, what did we see? We saw the Europeans holding everything and the Americans just lipping out. And suddenly, this momentum that takes over, which is so weird in team play in golf, you can feel it. You can sense the momentum shifting. I guarantee you, Keegan Bradley was going around telling everybody, hey, we just won this match. We just won this match. Keep the pressure on. Keep the pressure on. We can do this. And you got the sense that the American side actually believed there was a chance. for them to pull it off. The odds were astronomical against it. So I have to give the Americans a lot of credit on one level because they didn't quit. They found the resolve. They found their competitive fire again. And they were feeding off each other as a team, which is something we so desperately are terrible at when it comes to the Ryder Cup. So I give them a lot of credit. But I'm not going to give them too much credit. Because if they had showed that much fight through the first 2 days, let's be honest, we wouldn't have been in this position. You know, there was a pitcher for a long time in the major leagues named Jose De Leon. The guy would go out there and give up 2-3 runs almost every game, sometimes one. And he would find a way to lose. The team would lose 4-3, 3-2, 2-1, right? It just he was snake bit as a pitcher. I was working in St. Louis at the time, and at that time Joe Buck was still calling St. Louis Cardinal baseball games. He was pitching for the Cardinals at the time. And I'm like, man, it just seems like Jose De Leon is just snake bit here. He can't find a way to win. You know, he gets no run support. And Joe looked me square in the eye and says, well, sometimes then you got to throw a fucking shutout. And he was right. So at the end of the day, we can bitch and moan about this and that. The Americans put themselves in this position because they didn't show up for the first 2 days. And they played great Saturday afternoon when it was impossibly down, and the Europeans just said, we're going to play better. So in many ways, the European team on Saturday did exactly what teams did against Jose De Leon all the time. Oh, all right, well, fine. You're going to give up 1 run. We'll find a way to make 2. We'll find a way to do that. They just upped their game to an incredible level. But it speaks to something else about Shane Lowry. When Shane Lowry made that putt on 18 to tie his match with Russell Henley, thus ensuring that the cup would remain with the Euros. First of all, he danced a jig that should be barred and banned from Ireland forever, separate issue. But in the post-game interview, he was having trouble containing his emotions. He was having trouble even beginning to form a sentence. And he said the most interesting thing that summed up this Ryder Cup to me. He said the Ryder Cup is everything to me. He said as he was walking up the 18th green, or the 18th fairway to the 18th green, he looked at his caddy and said, I have a chance to do the coolest thing in the world, which is secure the point or half point necessary to make sure the Europeans hold the cup. And then he went on to say this, and I think this is so important. He went on to say, I've won the Open. Some people here call it the British Open. It is the Open Championship. It always will be. That's why we do Straight Facts Only. We want to tell you the truth, like and subscribe. He said, I won the Open in my home country at Royal Portrush in 2019. And this is bigger to me. Winning the Ryder Cup and being the guy who made the putt to make sure the cup stays with the Europeans was bigger to me. Now let's just think about that for a second. This is an Irishman who won the Open Championship in Ireland. Ireland and England have a very difficult history together. An extremely difficult history together. And in Shane Lowry's mind, it wasn't even fucking close what was more important to him. It was winning the Ryder Cup, making the putt to keep the Ryder Cup with the Euros. I want you to ask yourself a really serious question. Do you believe Scottie Scheffler feels that way? Do you believe Justin Thomas feels that way? He might. Do you believe Bryson DeChambeau feels that way? Do you? Because I don't. The Ryder Cup means more to the Europeans. It just does. It means more to them. I know it means a ton to Rory McIlroy. Shane Lowry told us what it meant to him. Robert McIntyre, the young lefty, was unbelievable in Rome in 2023. And even after they had won the cup, or after they had retained the cup, they made damn sure that they weren't going to win by 14. They wanted to make sure they won the cup outright. And that's why even after it was over and it was official that the Europeans had won the cup, they played their asses off to make sure it wasn't 14. They wanted at least 14 and a half to make sure they won it. They didn't retain it. They won the damn thing. And that leads us to the substitution rule. And a lot of people got their brains scrambled about this. Saw a lot of posts out there from people who should know better about golf and about the Ryder Cup. That's bullshit. If that guy can't play, then we should get the full point. That's crap. Well, that's the rule. Okay? You may not like the rule. It's like the tuck rule, right? You may hate the rule, but in the playoff game between the Patriots and the Raiders, that was the right interpretation of a bad rule. Now, if you want to change that rule, and I think there's a real possibility that that might be the case going forward, you can do that. The rule is, if there's a player that can't play due to injury, the captain of the other team has to put somebody's name in an envelope. It's called the envelope rule. And should that player not be able to go, then that player's name will be revealed, and that player cannot play, and thus that match between those two, the injured player and the player who's not going to play against him, that match will be halved. I feel bad for Harris English, because Harris English was part of the 2021 Ryder Cup team that won at Whistling Straits. I know Harris personally. He's a dog. He wants to win. He wants to go out there and play. So it sucked for him that his was the name that was in the envelope because he was scheduled to go up against Viktor Hovland in singles. I understand that. But I don't want anyone to sit there and say, that was bullshit. That's the rule. It's been that way forever. In fact, the Ryder Cup that got me going, we've talked about it on this podcast, the War at the Short Keel in 1991, Steve Pate was an American player who was nicknamed Volcano, not because he hiked a lot in Maui. He had a temper, and it showed up every once in a while. He had an injury that week, and there was a point where they thought he wasn't going to be able to go. And so the Europeans were going to have to find somebody to deal with the envelope rule there. It's been around forever. Now, look, I get it. The worst argument you can make of all time is that's the way it's always been. But you're not going to change the rule during the Ryder Cup. We can talk about, and I think it's a fair discussion, to change that rule ahead of 2027 at Adair Manor, which, by the way, will be in Ireland. So Shane Lowry going to be fired up for that one, too. And if you want to change that rule ahead of time, fine. But that means the R&A, the Royal and Ancient, and the PGA of America are going to have to agree on that. And I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. You can have that discussion. And I think it was critical to the Europeans that rule, the envelope rule, the substitution rule, whatever you want to call it, wasn't the way they won the Cup. They wanted to make sure that wasn't the reason. They wanted to take that out of the equation. So again, I give the Americans a lot of credit for the fight they showed on Sunday. My question would be, why did it take till Sunday for that fight to show up? Why wasn't it there on the early days, the sessions Friday and Saturday? And again, the Europeans played their ass off. But you want to be the best? It's very simple. The old line, to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? So I don't want to hear, oh, they played really well. No, just play better. Like on Saturday's round, I was listening on Sirius Radio as I was driving around. The combo of Bryson DeChambeau and Scottie Scheffler were playing Justin Rose and Tommy Fleetwood. And Tommy and Justin were making fucking everything. They were just making everything. And the commentator on Sirius XM said he heard Bryson and Scottie say after they walked off the eighth green, these guys can't keep this up. Wrong mentality. In match play, you have to assume that your opponent is going to make fucking everything, okay? That's the only way to play. In match play, every time that guy lines up for a putt, he's going to make it. When he's sitting in a bunker 180 yards away, you assume, you have to think, he's going to put it on the green, so I have to do that. So I think that's a flawed mentality that the U.S. applied at times. If they were saying, hey, they can't keep this up, what indication did we see before that the Eurons weren't going to keep that up? They kept it up for 2 straight days. They had to hang on by a thread on Sunday. But the mentality and the want to, I think, are things that, as much as anything else, we need to work on for the U.S. team if they want to ever find a way to win one of these damn things again. Because this broke them. This Ryder Cup broke the Americans, and they've got to find a way to piece themselves back together. Otherwise, we're in for a long, long, long drought of trying to win the Ryder Cup. And that's straight facts.